And hello, I think we're
Hello.
live.
Hello, everyone.
We've gone live without asking if we've gone live, which I've kind of killed that now by
Yeah, we're
asking.
not making a big deal about it this time, are we? We're just going
No,
into it.
we're not even talking about it. It's
We're
not
not
even a
even
topic
talking
of
about it.
conversation.
It's not a
Not even a topic of
focus.
conversation.
We're just going straight into the material, and it's just showing how much we're growing.
So, Huw, I've noticed you've got a whole new setup there in front of you.
Have you noticed that?
I mean, it
Well,
looks and
mate,
sounds incredible.
I've got a little mic peeking in the corner. You can see there with a pop filter. I
Mm.
had this mic for an online course that I was recording many moons ago, and it's just sat in the cupboard doing nothing. So I thought I'm actually going to get some form of setup and actually use it at some point. So I bought myself a little microphone stand, got a pop filter, and you are now hearing my beautiful dulcet tones. Well, actually,
Mm.
am I right? You're not fully hearing me right now. Is that right?
I'm hearing you perfectly
Oh, you
fine.
can't. Oh, sort of. Yeah, of course you are, because we're having a conversation.
So what we were having on the conversation earlier is you have your headphones going directly into your mic, and you can hear
Correct.
in your headphones yourself, whereas I cannot hear myself in the broadcast. I have no direct plug into the audio. So yeah,
That's
a
the
little behind the
conversation.
scenes. I'm trusting you got it right, mate.
Yeah, you sound great. I sound slightly better, but it's an improvement, and we're moving in the right direction, which is all that's important.
We'll let the audience decide. If you want to comment
Comments
on
below,
who
people.
sounds
Who sounds
more
better?
chocolatey, please put that in the comments, or we could even do a vote. I'm gonna refrain because I don't want to embarrass you.
Okay.
I'd say the
No
majority of our
problem.
audience is we'll move on from there.
Okay.
So this week, the title, we have masks, and I touched on it a bit earlier. I think a couple of episodes ago, and it's something that I desperately wanted to just talk about in detail. And it's something we were talking about, and I think you found it an interesting topic to where it was worth discussing. So I'm curious, what is your position on? And when I say masks, I'm not talking about Halloween. I'm not talking about American football. I'm talking about the COVID-19, the cloth mask. I'm not talking about the N95 mask. So, what are your thoughts on cloth masks? Because the UK on the 24th is going to be moving forward with a mandatory. So, before it was, we think you know, so the rule before was masks will help. Everybody needs to wear a mask if you can't social distance, and on public transport, you have to. And we trust the British population to do the right thing. And that hasn't necessarily happened. Cases aren't necessarily growing, but the evidence was there, and the British government thought, you know what, there's enough data back there that we're going to make it mandatory in shops to help keep the spread down. That's their decision. What are your views on cloth masks? Whatever they are, I'm not going to judge you.
I haven't done a huge amount of research on it. I've also been influenced a lot by Lou because she works in the NHS. So she's had kind of the full cycle that I think a lot of people have gone through, that, God, we need to have them right now. Everyone needs to be wearing them too. Actually, they don't seem to prevent it. It might not be as important as it seemed. There are drawbacks to it. To coming back full circle, as soon as she walks into the building, she needs to have a mask on permanently. And she's having to be in theatre and wear full kit and everything with masks. And it's I'm hearing it from from the industry in some way. So that's really what's impacted my stance, which I think kind of reflects what a lot of people, what I've heard say online, which is it isn't going to prevent you from getting coronavirus. And I don't think that's the main deal behind it. It's really going to help the spread. So if you are a part of that, knowingly or not, then wearing a mask going out and about is going to prevent or I say prevent, I think it's probably stronger to say it's going to really minimize the chances of it being spread around. And if everyone were to take that type of action, then we're not going to incur as much of the spread of this virus. So that's what I've kind of learned about it. Therefore, what are my opinions? I've got a mask with me. When I'm outside, I don't wear it. If I'm going into a shop, I'll have it on standby. I know rules have just changed, but for clarification as well, I think I've been into about 2 or 3 shops since lockdown. So I haven't got a huge amount of experience, but right now I've got a cloth mask kind of in my car ready to go if I am and about, and I'm more than happy to wear it. I'll do whatever they're suggesting, to be honest with you. I'm not digging my heels in. If I can help not spread it, then I'll absolutely do that. How about you, mate? Where are you standing on it?
My position is I'm very pro mask. I had a bit of a debate with my wife about it. Not that she doesn't believe masks are the way forward. I think it was more the debate on when the British government should have maybe made it more mandatory. Because there are some. I think the way it's being looked at right now is the benefits far outweigh any of the detractors. And there's some detractors that I remember that the British government was saying, and in America they were saying, which we're gonna look at that in a second. But some of those detractors being you spend more time touching your face, and you're adjusting it, or it gives you a sense of security that you don't have. So maybe you're going to be all up in somebody's shit a bit more normally, which I've seen that. I've seen somebody with a mask whose face is like right here when I'm in a shop. And I know they're doing that because they think, oh, I can't infect you. I've got a mask on, which isn't quite how it works. But for me, it's all the stuff I've read. I've looked at many papers. I've just tried to find as much research as I can, partially because of the people I speak to back home. And I very much am fully on board with it. Much like you, if they tell us to wear a mask, I'm using the word they for those conspiracy theorists. If doctors and scientists and our elected leaders say we need to wear masks, then I'm not going to question it, because it makes no bearing in my life. It doesn't cost me any money. If any, we've got masks for free. It's not hard to come by them. We could have made one. And it makes no difference whatsoever in my life. And interestingly, the guy who was over for the week, or not over for the week, but who stayed over last night, he's a friend of mine who lives in the UK. He's from America, flew home during COVID because his father passed away. To go see his father. And he wore a mask for 18 hours. He's from New Mexico. So it's not as if he can fly to New York over 7 hours. He has, layovers and internal travel inside the US, and it's not easy getting to near Albuquerque from London. So he wore a mask for 18 hours. He had no problem with it. And it's no different than if a doctor tells you, if you keep doing this, you will get sick. Okay, you are the doctor. I will stop doing this because I will get sick. So from my point of view, it's a no-brainer. If there's any data whatsoever that says wearing a mask is going to help limit the spread, is going to help save lives, and it doesn't take any time, money, or effort or change my behavior in any way, which a mask, I don't consider it changing my behavior. I'm all for. So those are my views on the table outright. Which is an interesting segue. So have you heard about anybody who has any problems with wearing masks?
Well, you're saying about, I would like just to very briefly comment on what you were saying. I wouldn't share 100% of it, your opinion that it doesn't bother me anyway. When I have worn them, about the 3 times I've worn them, it is annoying. I've got to state that. I would be lying if I said, oh, I don't notice anything. I wear glasses, as you can see. And as some of you might also notice, I'm also ginger and fair-skinned. So I don't know if that's got anything to do with gingerness or not. But being fair-skinned, I also sweat profusely. I get hot. I'm just one of those guys that I can easily sweat. So it doesn't take a lot of temperature outside to kind of get that going. So if you're in the summer now, lockdown weather has been fantastic. And going in stores and stuff, walking around, the heat kind of comes up. There's that. It's uncomfortable. I can't hear. Also, my hearing. I've had perforated eardrums. My hearing isn't brilliant. I've listened to too much loud music in my days as well, and I have had to ask them several times. Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying, and going closer to a cashier. So. Yeah, I have to admit, I have found it annoying, but it's just something that I'm prepared to tolerate for all the reasons that you stated. That doesn't weigh up to the point. I want to do my bit and make sure that I'm, so yeah, my glasses steam up. It's a bit annoying doing it. Lou she's in a different position. That it sounds like a massive pain in the ass, a big pain in the ass for hospitals to go to the lengths they go to. It's made their life a lot more difficult, more time consuming. So yeah, I think it's relevant for me just to add that in there.
I think part of it is For me, it's not. I haven't worn one long enough to really find it annoying in any way. I think I've only ever worn one for 15 minutes at any one time.
Right.
And I think the difference for us compared to other people, and even your partner, is we don't have to wear them on a regular basis. So it's a big
Yeah, of course.
change. And for my mate who wore it for 18 hours, he said you do when you wear them, because he's in London, so he's on public transport quite a bit. He's to the point now where he's a nice, comfortable cloth mask, and he doesn't even notice it's on. And I asked him about this. I said, "So over the 18 hours, you wore it nonstop?" I mean, he obviously took it off to have a drink, or he lifted it to have a drink and to eat. But I said, "Did that bother you?" He's like, "I forgot I had it on almost the whole time." So and I'm not saying that it isn't uncomfortable to you. I think there's a level of adaptability and just lack of experience with that. And to sort of link this into something else, there are people that do, and we've had our show on anxiety, who do have anxiety, serious anxiety. And for some people, and I can understand it, where if you've never worn a mask, you feel like it's stopping you from breathing, or you feel like you're going to
Yeah.
hyperventilate. And that's a mental thing. And even in
Mm.
this country, I was one of the things I was listening for was people with anxiety or people who are really stressed or having some, mental health issues. You don't have to wear it. And you don't have to in this country. And I think in the US, you don't have to provide any evidence that you're suffering from anxiety. The idea is if 90% of the people, 80% of the people are wearing a mask, even 60%, it is going to mitigate some spread. But
Yeah.
I think there's an element of adaptation that we have to undertake. So, I take your point. It isn't for everybody going to be comfortable. And I think if I wore it for, let's say, 2 hours in a shop on a hot day, I probably would find it a little bit annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, so to state from the anxiety level, because I've admitted I've had anxiety disorder for a large percentage of my adult life. I'm not bothered by that. That's fine. That hasn't impacted me personally. It's just that it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but not to the extent that I would stop doing it.
Yeah. And what is it about the mask for you that you're uncomfortable about it? Why wouldn't you complain about or think maybe I shouldn't wear it? I mean, for you, what is the overriding factor getting you to sort of suck it up as opposed to complain, knowing that it's not 100% foolproof?
Doing my bit. It's that I choose to believe in the science and what's being reported, that it makes a difference wearing it. So I'm trying to make a difference, and the pain associated with that is not a problem. And even if it were more painful, but the government asked us to do that, I would do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's really anything more to add to that front, mate. I just want to do I mean, I would hate to be involved with spreading it and to be involved, to be a part of that. And if I can just mitigate that and play, it's also, be the change you want to see in the world, Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
So, if you want other people to do that, I think you've got to be really careful how you try to influence other people to do anything. But if it's especially something like this, I mean, I heard a podcast where one ex-fighter went out for a bike ride, and this woman on a horse, he was on a bike, so out in the open air in California, middle of nowhere, no one's out there. And she said, "Where the fuck's your mask?" And he was like, "What? Excuse me?" It's like, where's your fucking mask? And I was like, so now we have issues. Like it's not against the rules to wear it out for starters, but they're also in the middle of nowhere. And also, do you think speaking to someone like that is really going to kind of get the best out of them? So, even if it is totally unequivocal, I think you've got to be really careful about how you do that. So again, I put it back on myself rather than going around trying to be the mask police. Just make sure you're doing your bit. And then hopefully that will influence someone to do theirs.
Yeah, and that's part of why I have been wearing them now and that's a very British thing, doing your bit. And I was speaking to the guy who was up yesterday as an American, and we would debate this. I think he's slightly right of center, so he's not necessarily a left leaning liberal on the matter. And same as me, we both find the culture going on in, let's say, America more specifically, embarrassing. So it is now embarrassing for us, politics aside, as far as how Americans are dealing with this pandemic, and it's really, I guess, given us a bit of, I don't know what the word is. We're happy to be in Britain, and it's heartwarming to see how the British people that whole idea of we're doing our bit and we're going to work together, for the greater good, and make sure that we're doing everything to move forward with this. Because even now, with people that are going to the beach in droves or going to the pub, for the most part, actually, the large majority of people are working collectively without having to be told to make the right decisions. And what I wanted to go into was there's a huge cross section of people in the United States, which is, I think, influenced by a lot of what's going on in the government, who are arguing whether a mask is the efficacy of a mask. So people like plasterers, postmen, they have strong opinions on the medical efficacy of a mask, which I find amazing, because the people that are instructing us to wear masks are medical and science professionals at the end of the day. That's who the government is taking their decision making from. And I think Boris Johnson is an example of the current government in the UK. They were slow to make that decision, but they were guided by the science at the end of the day. The body of evidence was into the point where they had to make that decision. They didn't make a decision because they took in what the doctors were saying and made a medical decision. They took the information in and made a decision on what's best for the people and the economy. And I think that was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see what you've got on this, Shawn, because I don't believe in forcing people to do things like this, because I think I think there'd be a fair argument to be enforcing things like every single person has to have an adequate levels of vitamin D in their system, because that has been shown to be one of the easiest things you can do to fight this thing if you were to get it. And the people that have struggled are people with extremely low levels of vitamin D. So do we force people to do that? Do we force people to lose weight? Because it's also shown obesity has been something that really works against it. And, I think you can go really deep on this thing. So I believe in fulfilling that. And I'd like to try and do the, same for other people. But, we've got a comment, Shawn, just coming in there. But I think we shouldn't be kind of making people do that. I also think that plasterers, I don't understand what that job is, but I know from doctors it's a little bit different. But I suppose my point being is, by keeping to these regulations, some people have to work in conditions that are untenable, like, a mask on someone's face doing something of exhausting work. Jesus Christ. Like, for me having it for 15 minutes is nothing. But I don't want to, I don't believe we should go down the route of forcing people to do this necessarily. That's just my own kind of view on that. So yeah, I'm interested to see what you've got and your views on that. And I think we should also pass comment of our first live comment.
So 69 GTO, man, you are the first ever comment that we've had that wasn't friends or family. Thanks for jumping in. So your comment was, and I think this is on the heels of what you're saying, Huw, exactly. You can ask and I may do it, but if you force, I will not. And I think this is where the differentiation is. And this is where a lot of people kind of fall into a bit of debate on this. I think what is a sensible debate. I think there's other things that aren't sensible to debate about. And I think it's when you're being forced. In the UK, so for example, I don't know where you're from, 69 GTO, man. In the UK, it's the police. I guess it's police by consent and not authority. So it's effectively the police will be upholding the law as it's permitted by the people. So in other words, in the US, I believe it's different. There's more of an authoritarian structure with the police, where they have laws and they enforce those laws by force. And in the UK, it's by consent. And the issue they're having in the UK right now, or the issue they're discussing right now, is how do we legislate that? How do we govern that? So if somebody's not wearing a mask, is it down to the shops to call the police? The police don't have the resource to come around to do it. Exactly. But it's I think the question is interesting, because even when you look at that comment, if you force, I will not. I don't think it's a matter of forcing people. It's a matter of educating people as to what it does. So the question is, why are you not wearing a mask? Are you not wearing a mask simply because you're being forced to? Are you not wearing a mask because you've got an overriding health issue? Is it a cost element? There's a lot of questions that I would ask about that, because at the end of the day, what the science says is it will substantially reduce the spread. So if you're not wearing a mask, and let's say my parents are in a shop, my parents fall within that sort of 60 to 80-year-old range. Now, what the data says is if you're 60 to 70, I think something like 3.5 to 5% of people are, can potentially die from the coronavirus. And then when you get to 70 to 80, it goes up to something like 8%. And the issue being, if you have it and don't know it, which is a high percentage of people, you are putting my parents and my grandparents at risk. So I totally appreciate that. I think we shouldn't have to force people to wear it. But if somebody wants to go into a shop, are you not, I guess my question then is, are you not forcing someone to make a decision to not go out and buy food because they're in that at-risk category and somebody's not wearing a mask? So for me, that's an interesting question. I appreciate the comment, and I'm not knocking you, and I think it's a fair point to raise. Yeah, true. Freedom is the choice. I'm in charge of my own health. You can educate, but still my choice. And Huw, I'm curious to hear what you say to that. And again, thanks for the comment. I guess from my point of view is, what about the choice of the people who are at risk? And that's what do you think about that, Hugo?
Yeah, so I'm probably somewhere in the middle of you guys, because I feel comfortable in doing it, but I think we have to acknowledge the fact that it's easy for me to do that. It's not a big bearing on my life, and I think we have to acknowledge that it is potentially a big bearing on a lot of other people's life. Well, a bigger bearing on other people. Depending on how manual their work is and what's involved with that. I think you've got to walk a mile in your shoes before we judge those people. So yeah, it's easy for me. So yeah, true freedom is a choice. I'm in charge of my own health. Absolutely. I really agree with that. So I'm also educating guys in that you can look up the research on this. Vitamin D has I wish I had the numbers on it, but it has a remarkable difference. And if you can do one thing, if you ask Joe Rogan about this and Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who was on his show and talked in depth about this topic, vitamin D is one of the single things you can do to increase your reaction to this. So why aren't we forcing people to do that? Or at the very least, over here, I haven't even heard anything. I know I don't read the news and follow it closely, Shawn, but have you heard anything about that? Because, is there nothing to say that everyone should get to a certain level of BMI, therefore, and be at risk because of the strain that you're putting on the NHS for being overweight, or you're not taking this, therefore the strain on other people? I think it's what you raise is a valid point about masks, but unfortunately, mask isn't the only issue. There's going to be so many other components that come into that, which are all going to affect the lives of many other people. I feel like education is the key, putting it across correctly, and backing it up and showing it up, and really trying to push for the right action and then doing the right thing.
Yeah, I'm not quite there.
I think the government and everything need to kind of do that as well. They need to be, if they're telling people to wear that, they need to be making sure they're doing that. And the politician a few months back who kind of went against the guidelines, that's when you get into danger, is when you're not following it yourself as well, or you're not practicing what you preach. So let's do a better job of educating, but more well-rounded. I think this mask thing has got political, unfortunately, and it's that's a real shame, because it's making people, and you're banging on about one thing, and there's loads of other things that I think we should also be talking about.
Yeah, I think there's some middle ground. I think I'm not quite to where GTO man is, or you, but I 100% appreciate it. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Because when you talk about BMI, for example, I'm overweight. So therefore, the NHS, as a specific example, I am at a greater health risk, which means that I'm putting more pressure on resources here by simply being overweight. So not only am I affecting myself with my health, I'm affecting other taxpayers and what they're paying. But I think I liken this to secondhand smoke. So, and again, you and GTO man may have a different view on this, but why is it? So for me, why is it okay to say, all right, you can wear masks if you want, but it's also okay to say you're not permitted to smoke cigarettes in a bar? Because those are very similar, I think, links to connect here. At what point does it become legislation? At what point does it become freedom? Because there are points in society where you have to divide between things that give me freedom of choice and freedom. And a follow-up to what GTO man said is, freedom is sometimes messy. You force one thing, then you can force on another, then freedom gone. And what I think you're saying, GTO man, is there's a precedent that you start setting when you start legislating or start making things illegal, for example. And I think masks would be this one that you would say would be that slippery slope we would start going down. And what he said to follow up on that is middle ground is you appeal to common sense, but people have choice. And I think the only thing I would question, and I'm not saying I know necessarily how I feel, and I think these are all good points. When we're trying to limit or prevent, let's say, the spread, right now you have to depend on stores to let's say not let somebody come in without a mask. They have a right as a vendor to say, I'm not going to allow anybody else in without a mask. But what if, let's say, we have the theme where you can do what you want. I'm going to follow my guidelines. I'm not going to listen to the science or medicine. And I choose that I should be allowed to go wherever I want without a mask. But again, I just have the question, what does that mean for somebody else? And where do we divide the line on things that can hurt or that can kill somebody? If, let's say, we look at masks as an issue that has a larger outreaching thing with the pandemic. You have, for example, economic issues with the spread going on. So if we look at countries who have enforced a mask issue, whether that's right or wrong is something we can discuss. But if you look at those situations, people are more free in those countries right now to do what they want because they're not limited by the spread of a pandemic that's killing a lot of people. So for me, it is messy. I think that's a fair point, but I also don't think it's something we should just say, look, if you want to wear a mask, this is what the information says. If you don't want to wear a mask, go nuts, walk in the shop, shirt off, no mask on, breathing on everybody. You have a right to do that. But the people in that shop also have a right to live their life right now. And I really struggle with that. That's the thing that I struggle with.
Yeah, it's a strong argument, Shawn. And, for I think large of what you've said there, I kind of feel inclined to wear a mask as a result. And I just don't like, probably similar to what GTO Man is saying there. What's difficult for him is trying to put across his opinion in text, right? And it would be really helpful almost to get him on here and have really hear his point of view. I just don't like either the thought of making people do things and that we should educate them the best that we can and then allow them to make those calls for themselves for the greater good. I'm kind of torn. It is a difficult thing because I believe very strongly in looking after fellow people and doing the right thing, but I think that should be done out of choice largely. But very interesting discussion, to be honest. I do sit somewhere in the middle of all of this.
I think that segues us in to one of the first videos, because I think it's going to be very much along the lines of what GTO Man was saying when he was here. Was people are taking this as a freedom point of view, and for me, let's have a look at the first video, because the first video is a typical example of what we're seeing in the U.S. right now. So let me set that up.
Yeah, you get that set up. I just want to quickly say thank you again to 69 GTO Man. Appreciate you coming across and listening to us and passing on your views. Much appreciated.
Yeah, very much appreciated. Exciting times. We had a comment. Crazy. And that was coming from Periscope, interestingly. So this is probably one of the most viral videos of somebody protecting his freedom of speech and freedom to not wear a mask. And I love that the first thing I'll just put you on my 3,000 follower Instagram feed. I tell you, if I was his friend, I would be slating him for that just right out of the gate. So you are such a superstar. So I'm not talking about his point of view. Just I have to laugh at that. He's flexing 3,000 Instagram subscribers.
Yes, look out.
And he probably is following 15,000. Okay.
On my 3,000 follower Instagram feed, mostly locals.
Hi everyone, I work for Costco and I'm asking this member to put on a mask because that is our company policy.
So right away, I think that's a pretty badass reply, if I'm honest.
Fair play to him. I like it.
So far I liked how I haven't watched this all the way through. I saw bits of it. It's very popular. I saw that first clip and I just remember thinking, I like how he answered that question. So he didn't shy away from the camera. He said, hey,
bring it on.
That's our policy.
Yeah.
So you wear the mask.
And I'm not doing it because I woke up in a free country.
Have a great day.
So you're going to take this car from me?
Sir, have a great
full
day.
Of stuff.
You are no longer welcome here in our warehouse. You need to leave. Thank you very much.
You put it on. I'll give you my card. He's going to take the card away because he's a There he is, walking away with all my stuff.
So initial thoughts, Huw? We'll keep watching it because that's about where I'm curious to see where that goes.
I just have very little patience for people acting like that. And I'm talking about the guy with the massive 3,000 following here. Yeah, the guy in Costco was actually fair play to him because he stood his ground, but he was respectful. He wasn't an asshole. He was stern, firm but fair. I love firm but fair. I felt that he handled that really well, actually, and that the guy, if they're not following the company policy, they're entitled to, to ask them to leave, and that's what he's done. So it's, digging your feet. It's like it's an answer for everything, isn't it? Well, yes. I can call you a fucking bitchy pussy, blah 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 blah, because it's a free country. It's just such an asshole, weak argument. And just have some more to say than that. It's just like a get out clause. I can say anything I want because it's a free country, and that's the kind of the point of it, freedom of speech. But be better than that.
I'd be curious what his views are on allowing a cake shop to not make a cake for a lesbian wedding. I'd be very curious to see.
Interest.
Yes. He would have the same the right to refuse service.
Yeah,
curious, but we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, because there's still quite a chunk, isn't there?
Because I'm not.
So he's going to go back now. Because I'm not a sheep. There we go. To me, it's a power issue.
Yeah,
it's just he's saying it. I'm not a sheep. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do, and this is going to then cross over to what GTO man is saying, that there's that kind of freedom of speech, but we're not suggesting in any way he's going to react like that. But it's that people don't want to be made to do that, but it's how you go about it is really key as well, isn't it? Like, this guy could say, oh, look, I'm not sure I buy into the whole mask thing. Do you mind? I'll keep my distance. Do you mind if we just carry on with that? No, I don't have one to hand. Is that, there wasn't any of that, was there? It's just, it was just an ego battle straight out. I'm going to film you and show you, how you're taking away my freedom. And this, I'm not a sheep. I'm not going to just do what everyone tells me to do. It's, I don't think it's coming from a strong place there.
And again, watching this, and listening to your comments, it does make me, it actually, initially makes me kind of waver a bit on my point of view. And then when I watch these videos, I'm like, no, he's potentially creating a situation where a virus is spreading and more people are dying because of that virus. And, I look at him, he could potentially be breathing, what could kill somebody. And for me, it's not an issue of freedom. I mean, there's things the law prevents you from doing. You can't just go, it's not what's the word? Lawless society. You do have laws that you have to follow. And the question is the mask a personal freedom issue, or are you potentially spewing bacteria that can I don't even know if it's bacteria, but you're spewing bacteria that could kill somebody. It's not just do what you want, man. Just come on in and it'll be up to everybody else to run and hide. That's I don't know that's what freedom is. You can do what you want, so people who are in the minority have to sit down and stay home and get ill and die.
Without a doubt, Shawn, this guy is kind of working against what GTO man's argument was. This isn't great when you see this type of behavior. Don't know how common it is and what have you, but it's sad to see.
Let's see where this goes, if anywhere.
Is unjust.
So he believes he does not have COVID-19 after quarantining at home. So let me adapt this to a conversation we're going to potentially have at some point. Guns. I believe I'm good with guns. Therefore, just give me a gun and let me walk around the city with it, cocked and loaded, and just waving it around, because I believe I'm quite good with guns. I believe that. I don't have the education. I don't have the experience, i.e. My analogy here, I don't have a medical background. I don't have a degree. I haven't spent any time researching COVID or pandemics or epidemiology, but I probably don't have it. So therefore I should be fine.
Now, the weakness to it isn't great, is it? But I want to just give some credit where it's due and look on the other side, play devil's advocate here, he probably doesn't. That is what's making this such a contentious issue, is he probably is okay and probably doesn't have it and probably won't spread it. And a kind of law of large numbers, that's going to be the case. The vast majority of us won't. But unfortunately, if then everyone abandons and believes they don't, then that's when you're going to have a problem on your hands. But that's what, so I think that's where it differentiates between your argument with a gun, although it brings up a good point, just because you believe it does not make it so. But because of the kind of percentages we're dealing with here, he probably is right, unfortunately. But as I say, if everyone just goes around believing that, we also know that symptoms don't show you've got it before you know you've got it. So there is still a possibility he has it and isn't aware of that.
Yeah. So I mean, imagine you are even then. Imagine you're immune compromised, and Garrett says he's fine. That's not the prerequisite for me to put my life on the line to go into Costco. Yeah. Garrett says he's fine, but and very well, he could have had it and he could have some level of immunity to this. But the thing is, when you make rules, and this is whether this is a rule, a law or not, is it something that we just make people follow because it's just black and white? The only way we're going to make a law and force people to follow laws is if everybody does the same thing. We can't allow you to make a determination that you've had it and you're fine. That's not how the law works. This is the difficulty. So as a saying that I've heard, which I think is spot on as far as discipline, I'm a pretty disciplined guy. 99% is hard, 100% is easy. So if you've got to do something 99% of the time, it's so hard to do that because you're allowed to not do it 1%. So if I just don't drink very often, you're going to end up drinking. Yeah. But if you go ahead and just say, I'm never going to drink, it's just really easy to follow because you know exactly where you stand with it. So there is difficulty in the openness to interpretation. Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think from my perspective, I look at stop hitting that. The way I look at it is, if I had the virus, I would still wear a mask because the resource strain to check that I have had it and I have confirmed I've correctly had it. So if I had the symptoms and I quarantine myself, that does not mean I've had it. And that does not mean I'm confident that I've had it, nor that I can't spread it. And to just save time, to make it easier, I'm wearing a mask. But I'm sure that's how most people are. And, again, in GTO Man's example, he would expect that most people would probably be sensible and do that. He probably would be sensible and do that. Garrett, on the other hand, Garrett does not want to do that. And he wants to advertise to his Did you hear how many followers he had, by the way? Maybe we're not giving him the credit he's due. He has 3,000 followers. He's got that for a reason. I mean, it's substantial, isn't it? 80%. If the 80% of the American population wore masks, it would drop it down to 8%. And that's just forget about the fact that people look at that as a big conspiracy, as to whether they're giving information for valid reasons. But I really struggle with when you decide something is going to be a mandate. And for me, that is a good enough reason to mandate it because I'm stuck in my house because this thing is spreading. And I just want to make Garrett wear an effing mask. That's all I want. I want to make him wear an effing mask, or I want him to go home right now. That's like my thought. I'm not saying that's what we should legislate for, but I want him to either wear a mask or go the hell home right now because my Nana could be in there. I hear you. I do hear you. Sorry, I keep going back to it. It just winds me up. No, I think it's a strong argument. Let's see where this goes. I think Costco has a right to make that rule too. They're well within the right. Yeah, it's their business. They're looking after their employees as they should. So where is this? Yeah. That's the idea, right? It isn't about you. Tyson. Strong name. Tyson killed it. He did. I gotta say, I know a lot of people don't like Tyson. I've heard people don't like Tyson's way he handled it.
Oh,
He was fine.
I thought he was fine. Again, he's putting his health at risk to offer people a service. Every single person in retail I've got respect for, and we should be a lot more understanding of that.
Read that again. So me watching this guy, oh, this is a comment. So these are Twitter comments now coming in. Me watching this, wishing Tyson had demanded the guy's membership card first and then cut it up in front of him like a busted Amex. See,
Again,
this is where
like,
for me,
the social media, everyone has got to have their, if I was him and I wish we could do that, and that would have helped what? Exactly. Isn't the way to go about it.
That's my favorite line. That is my favorite line right there. I'll put you on my 3,000 follower Instagram feed.
No, please don't.
Oh, 3,000. I don't know if you know who I am. I'm Garrett. You must have heard me. Garrett.
Yeah, exactly.
Not ringing a bell?
You're speaking to, do you?
Garrett.
Show my 3,000 follower Instagram feed, mostly local.
Hi everyone, I work for Costco and I'm asking this member to put on a mask because that is our company policy.
And you know what's brilliant about that? As if I was, let's say, the manager of that store, he's right there, killed any sort of speculation as to why that person did it. I'm not taking your stuff from you because I have a personal, preference towards masks. Hi, I'm Tyson. I work for Costco. I just wanted to tell all of you that Garrett's broadcasting me to that this is our company policy. So I'm taking his stuff because he's not following policy. No problem.
Absolutely.
Done. Easy. So that's our first example. And I had a more nuanced conversation with somebody about this on Facebook, funny enough. And it was on the heels of well, let me read you the comment here because I don't want to share it. I don't want to share any names. Actually, I might be able to copy and paste and put it on a notepad, and then I can share it and read it, and we can see it as so people who maybe aren't listening and watching can see it on the screen. So let me just. I'm going to bring up an email. Because we prepped for the show. I just had this idea, Huw, so I don't want you to think I didn't prep. I did prep. I just thought of this idea now. Was prepped.
I'm going to be bringing in new mandates to the show, Shawn, if you carry on, okay?
I prepped.
I'm gonna have all 8 of our viewers watch it as well. Okay, as it's done.
9.
You know who I am?
GTO man. We had GTO man.
Yeah, I thought he could be one of the 8, but he could be a 9th. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So can I share this? Is there anything? Oh, come on, dude.
I'm looking forward to the nuance because that's just almost, it's just a bit too exaggerated, isn't it? From the other side, it's a really kind of, it gives the side of the argument to make it mandatory, a lot stronger if there are people going around like that. So I'd like to see more nuanced view.
Hold on one second. Okay, I've got a notepad here. I'm just going to copy and paste it in. And of course, it's not working great. Why is it doing this? I put it on notepad and it's not put it on one screen. I'm not very good at notepad, apparently. I'm going to try one other thing. And if that doesn't work, to hell with it.
Yeah, you can just read it out if not, mate.
Okay, no, I've got it working now. I've got it work. I just didn't want it because I had a lot of there's stuff where I was putting it on a screen and Google doesn't let you have a separate draft. Okay, so this was this whole thing then started a more nuanced conversation about masks. Because I saw somebody post this on Facebook. So this is my thought process. Masks are bullshit. So starting off with, this person's coming to the party and they're bringing some serious data.
There's some heat.
Yep. So COVID-19 micron level 0.125. Cloth bandana masks - completely useless. Don't believe me? Put one on and go spray paint something for 20 seconds. Take the cloth off, blow your nose. End of debate. Medical masks are meant to be worn in a clean, sterile environment. They clog easily when used outside. They are single use and supposed to be, so I think it's disposed of, spelled wrong, after a single use. At the very least, if this mask keeps shit in, it will keep shit out. Wear one if you are scared, sick, or at risk. Don't worry about why I'm not wearing one. N95 masks meant to be worn in contaminated environments. They must be fit tested and are color coded for sizing. Filters the air coming in. However, everything exhaled leaves through the one-way vent on the mask. The statement, "My mask protects you," is bullshit. A full respirator with eye protection is the only effective way to completely protect against a virus you don't have. Most don't. So I think end of debate, really.
I've got views on this. So that was basically Lou's argument from the research that she had as well. Long and short of it is that we need to have full, this kind of the idea of the masks, because they hang off people. They haven't got them fitted properly either.
The N95 masks you're talking about.
Oh, I don't even know the names of them.
Masks. So the N95 is what Lou would be wearing. So N95, from what I understand, protects you from breathing in the bad stuff.
Right.
And then the cloth masks, they may block something, but they're more to prevent the expellation of your saliva, your spit, so when you breathe, if you wear a mask, sometimes it fogs up your glasses. So that's the vapor coming out of your mouth. That's the stuff that they believe is contaminating people. That's where the virus is being carried.
So I think that this is where the debate goes on to a different. Like you start arguing about something else, because actually I think the debate for masks is to minimize and reduce the spread, not to totally prevent it. Right. So what this person is saying, as someone, I don't know who this person is and what they do, it sounds like he may have experience in it, maybe like Lou has as well, of where you could kind of see these masks may or may not work. That they're not going to prevent it totally. I think that's a separate argument. I don't think people are suggesting that we walk around for the total prevention. It's just if we put this on, it's going to reduce things, and that's all we're after at this stage, because it's just more attainable, lower cost. It's easier to manufacture. It's just, it's going to take the edge off. Oh, that's really useful, Shawn. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So and I think it's interesting because I'd be curious to hear what Lou's thoughts are now, because she's from what it sounds like, she's talking about the masks that she has to wear and the masks. If, let's say, what I think doctors and scientists are referring to when they're referring to cloth masks or bandanas or whatever, not the N95. So this would be the mask that you would wear to prevent yourself from getting ill. So just to protect you from breathing stuff in. There's some athletes now that are wearing these in baseball because they're immune compromised and they don't want to get it. So they're wearing an N95 athletic style N95 mask.
Right.
And the idea behind these being it's preventing you from sending these particles far and wide, and it's catching a lot of the moisture in the mask. So you're not catching all of it. But what this is an example of, watching this video, and I'll share a link here. So this is one of the better videos made on the science behind this. When you wear the cloth mask or even a bandana, it's holding this vapor from expelling out of your mouth. So if you were to not have anything on your covering, and you'll see that there's a lot more leaving here with the bandana, but if you didn't have anything on, you would see sort of like a cone of I guess expellation. I don't even know if that's a word. And that those aerosols would be gathered far and wide. So if you're in an office space, for example, that's not ventilated, those are the areas that people believe, that the scientists and doctors currently believe it's being spread more, because the air is stagnant. There's no, so even opening a window. So my wife's work, they're giving the advice that if you're in the office, socially distanced, but you have to have the window open for an hour every so many hours to help ventilate the room. Because outside it spreads, and the idea of the mask is to sort of muffle that spread and to reduce the amount of stuff in the air. So that's, and I think this is where sometimes the debate gets a bit sort of muddled. One, we're having a debate on something that we're not qualified to. I've just read, and this is what I understand. Same with you. Yeah. But I think then it leads to the question: at what point are you able to make statements like that? Because this person, I'm not going to say what they had done. Well, no, I guess I can say, because it's a big wide world. They were an ex-police officer who is now, I think, in a building trade of some sort. Who's left and is a building trade. So no medical training, maybe first aid, maybe CPR, and they've done some research. But for me, there's a lot of things in that statement that I think are just factually wrong as well. As far as, let me just bring that up again. Did I close that? So in it, the COVID-19 micron level, and I think from my point of view, it's one thing if you're saying I want the freedom to not wear it. I think the other issue is, okay, fine, you don't want to wear it, but now you're starting to advertise why nobody should wear them. And if you're not a doctor and you haven't done any peer-reviewed studies on the matter, you shouldn't be advocating anything. And for me, completely useless. Don't believe me. Put one on and go spray paint something for 20 seconds. Take the cloth off and blow your nose. End of debate. That right there just misses the whole point. And that it's, from there, I think it just all validity is lost in this conversation after that one statement.
And why is that?
Because masks aren't there to prevent you from breathing in anything. So he's saying he's saying when you spray paint something, if you have a cloth mask on, you blow your nose, you're going to see the paint when you blow your nose. So therefore, if it's not stopping you from breathing it in, it's not stopping you from exhaling it out. So he's saying if it doesn't stop 100% of the stuff from coming out, then it's pointless.
Oh, I kind of interpreted that as in the other way of him getting it. So it's going to come through no matter what, because it does with the spray paint.
But that's nobody will even say. I think if you were to speak to a medical professional who would say wear a mask, they will not say, yeah, of course, it's going to stop everything. The whole point of it isn't to stop you from breathing anything in. It's to limit the amount of stuff in the air going out. So right there, that loses all credibility in this conversation, because that's not even what people are debating. That's not even the question.
I think, for me, it doesn't lose credibility. He's just having a different argument with something. He's just kind of putting his view across that this thing isn't 100% effective, which is not really, I don't know, again, what the thread is and where it comes from. But and the point where he says, they're totally useless or something to that effect later on as well is like, well, I mean, that's not accurate. You can even intuitively, you can see that it's going to make a difference. It's not going to stop everything, but it's going to make a difference, which is really the point here. It's not that big a deal to wear it for most people for those short periods. So why not just try and take the edge off and reduce the risk a little bit?
Yeah, but I think I have to disagree a bit with this statement not being. For me, this is to the point of you're complaining that the shield you're using to protect yourself isn't causing as much damage as a sword, or nobody's going to argue that this is, wearing a cloth mask is being done to stop you from breathing anything in. That's not even a conversation medical professionals are having with people.
Yeah.
And to make that statement is, in my view, incredibly tone deaf, and pretty much the narrative that they're trying to spin isn't even part of the conversation. So you're just trying to advertise something to do something it's not capable of doing. So that's why I won't wear it, because it doesn't do what it doesn't already do.
It's totally discredited against something else, which is not really the point of the argument. Yeah. I know. I hear what you're saying.
So let me just go back here. So it's interesting. And I had on that post, I had a more nuanced look and maybe a different view from let's say what GTO Man was talking about, what my friend was referring to, what he was talking about. And I said after that, my comment to my friend was, and always consult your doctor. That was all I said, just being a bit cheeky. You're not a doctor, so always consult your doctor. Where he wrote, unless they are dumb. But there was this person who jumped in and said, unless said doctor is part of a network that gets paid to report their results. Where I had the question, so what about in the UK where that isn't really, a thing really? It's not really an issue. It's National Healthcare Service. And what he said was, and I said, can I consult my doctor in the UK, NHS? The assumption is that doctors are getting profit sharing from mask companies. Not sure where the return is for advocating masks against scientific consensus. Not being funny. So that's what I said. My apologies. So what he wrote is, somebody somewhere is advocating for this hardcore. If not, why all the inflated numbers from states where even their own MEs are coming back and calling the data and deaths marked as COVID inaccurate. So some of these doctors / hospital networks, so this is in America, are either being directly funded under the table or they sit on some sort of advisory board that gets funded. The doctor reports the cases, deaths through the networks. The networks report them to the states, who in turn report them to the CDC. Somewhere something is very wrong, and I'm sure a whole lot of money is being exchanged. And by the way, I was trying not to read that in a sarky, just to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's hard for me not to read. Somewhere something is very wrong. So apologies. I'll try to read it properly. Somewhere something is very wrong, and I am sure a whole lot of money is being exchanged. So what is your view on that?
Well, I've never been to America, but I'm aware enough to know that their health system is totally different to over here. And they, along with New Zealand, are the two countries on the entire planet who are still allowed to advertise for medication online. And I mean, some of the adverts I've seen, which are laughable. So people, the pharmaceutical industry in particular, and GPs, I think there's enough evidence from what I've seen and hearing people talk about it that have been in the industry, that there is some crooked, underhanded stuff that happens in the medical world with people profiting and being incentivized to hand stuff out. So I know that stuff happens. Is that stuff happening with the masks? I would have no idea. But I thought your counter, which is a very strong counter, is the fact that thankfully not everyone in the world is incentivized to sell these masks, and there are countries actually that are just looking to save it. So let's look towards the data that's coming out from those people that aren't incentivized for a reason one way or the other. They're looking at the scientific basis of it. They're not funded to find a certain outcome, because you can make science, science can be made to look certain ways, and it can be profited to make certain results come out, such as caffeine and sugar. There's cigarettes, even there's things that have come out to make it look like these things add to your life when in fact they can take away in certain areas which aren't reported. But masks, I just know nothing. I do not know enough about it. But your counter is a very strong one, that there are countries which aren't incentivized. So let's just have a look at what's coming out to them and seeing what's being said. So I just want to add as well, Shawn, the freedom of speech thing I find a really frustrating caveat to everyone's argument, and conspiracy theories in general is difficult for me, because everything's a conspiracy. If you come out with that, it's like one of those default conspiracy theorists that just question everything. That's the problem with hearing some of these people come out with these arguments. These are the people that will just argue for everything, irrespective of what's coming through. Now, in some cases, they may be right. They may be right to call something out, but unfortunately, a lot of the time, they're made to look a bit silly because they haven't done the full research on it. And it's not just the first place to go, in my view. There are ways around that. If that's what you're worried about, in this case, there are ways around it. So I haven't looked at it. If those people truly care about it, have a look from the non-biased states, because there's plenty of them around the world that aren't incentivized. And
that was where I followed up, because he's added a bit more nuance to this. Because my question was, well, what about scientific consensus? I think most people would agree scientific consensus is wearing a mask is helping mitigate some of the case numbers. So if we take a look at 120 countries that have mandated or have put some sort of regulation in place for masks, just about all of those countries are seeing dropping to no numbers of cases, and they're not seeing the spike in numbers that you're seeing in the US, which has been very sort of confused on its messaging on masks. It's not been very clear. The president hasn't been very clear on his views on masks.
I mean, he now the leader of the Free State is not helping anyone either, is he? In this, that's a big. That's a really lot. We haven't even talked about that yet for almost an hour. And that is a massive factor for this happening in America. The number one person, the most powerful man in the world, isn't doing it, or hasn't. I think he has done more recently, but hadn't for a long time. And he's, be the change you want to see in the world. If he's just showing it's a load of nonsense and over-egged, people are just parroting that, and they don't really know it, and they're just following suit. So you're not surprised by this type of behavior. But your point of scientific consensus can still be shown to be inaccurate, but international scientific consensus from around the world, it's just very difficult for that not to come through. And I haven't seen, and I haven't looked for it, but I haven't seen, studies that come out with very strong counters towards it not taking the edge off and making a meaningful difference. So,
well, when I looked this up myself, again, just to see what consensus was, because I don't want to say anything and find out that I didn't research this. And I think I found something like 5 or 6 different peer-reviewed studies that came out in the last 3 months. And these are from the Cleveland Clinic in the U.S., which is quite well known. Johns Hopkins University. There are a lot of medical schools have done research in the last few months, and their point of view is, masks help mitigate the spread of the virus. And I keep asking these people, please provide me with some evidence, provide me with some data to get on board with you, because you and I aren't medical professionals. So I'm doing what I do on a larger scale than what I do when I go to my doctor. I listen to what the professionals say. Yeah, it could very well be that it's wrong. This is a new virus. People don't know what's going on. The opinion may change that masks made no difference in 5 years' time when we have more data, sets of data to study. But it actually goes on a bit with a follow-up. So when I ask those questions, and there's another, I found this to be an interesting reply. No, someone is making a killing off pushing the infection death rates higher than they are. So now we're moving away from masks, and we're talking about the numbers going up, and we're starting to make, in my view, no disrespect, but this is starting to go down the excuse territory for the numbers. The money is going somewhere. Pharma agencies to make meds, electronic companies to make chips for trekking, hospital foundations to push for more equipment or bigger facilities. Money makes the world go round, and the medical industry as a whole gets a shit ton of it. Do I think masks are effective? Nope. Not when we are 7 months late to the party to start. Not when 3/4 of the people wearing them either don't wear them correctly or don't have the proper type. So again, that's a bold claim. 3/4 of the people wearing them. So that's just his,
it's like,
it's all false sense of security. I was in a restaurant locally this last Saturday. So his next point is a bit of a non sequitur, because I don't disagree with this. In America, there are some restaurants making you wear your mask through the meal, where in the UK, they're just saying social distance, screens up, eat outside. They're not being stupid enough to ask you to wear masks. But I think, again, that goes down to the dumpster fire of communication that's going on in America as to why those restaurants do that. But you see there, the conversation breaks down when you start asking questions that I think require answers from those people making the accusations. Okay, fine. This is your position. So how does that translate to 120 other countries with different medical boards that are mostly government run? So they're not necessarily getting more profits. And then to make the statement that, by bankrupting people, by having businesses go out, especially in America where you need money to have health care. So if you're taking money from the people to fund the hospital so they can have a new MRI machine because, this COVID is good for business, you're bankrupting the people that are going to spend money on getting those MRIs. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to take money from somebody to buy stuff so that they can spend money. I just don't get that. So this was, it did sort of digress away from masks, but I just found it a very interesting narrative that was being spun. It just was something I didn't expect.
Yes and no. Yeah, I suppose at the time when it comes up, I can see why you'd be surprised. But let's be honest. In hindsight, now looking back, are you really surprised that people look at it that view? It kind of sounds like there's a large portion of people in America that are flat earthers, that irrespective of all the evidence that's coming out, proving that not to be the case, strong evidence from people that aren't incentivized to kind of put that out there, there isn't anything in the country coming out to show the opposite, or it's just weak kind of observational, circumstantial kind of evidence that's, there's not strong enough to really cut them mustard. So the point on the conspiracies and stuff, look, I've kind of again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know that there's a lot of shit that goes down that we don't know about, and there is some underhand stuff happening, and politics in general is riddled with it. The corporate and I watched the documentary 13th, all about the 13th Amendment on Netflix. Fascinating documentary. I knew nothing about what's kind of happened to the black people, being imprisoned, and what the numbers look like. And of course, it's a edited video with an agenda that's come through by people from Black Lives Matter, and they want to put across a message, and that's put across in a certain way. But it looks very compelling, and you're seeing the kind of monetization of prison system. I was like, I just didn't, not being from America, I didn't realize any of that stuff. And there's a lot of underhand stuff that goes on. So when you watch documentaries like that, it was a great documentary in general, but people feast on that stuff. So you automatically, your default thinking is, oh, it's just the government again. They're at it again. This is another thing. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised people are taking that leap. And, my gut, I can't prove that that's 100% not happening. I just think it's unlikely, but I can see why people will take that step. But I'm kind of with you on the point that let's try and follow that up with a little bit of evidence like the guys from the 13th documentary did.
And that sort of leads me into my last piece that I wanted to share with you on this, because it does transition quite well into what you're talking about, that whole evolution of the conversation, because now we're in a point where people are starting to post reasons why not to wear masks. And I think this is where my intellectual curiosity is piqued, because it's not just a matter of there's a specific reason I'm not wearing a mask. It's turned into an agenda. And now not only am I giving evidence as to why I think, or what I think is evidence as to why people shouldn't wear masks, I'm also providing evidence that is not necessarily related to what I'm talking about, but other reasons why we shouldn't wear masks. And to post this straight out of the gate. So this was what was on the Facebook feed. 2 boys dropped dead in China while wearing masks during gym class. Now, I had my first thought. I'll share with you what my first thought was. What was your first thought when you read this? Let's say you're reading this on your own.
From the headline alone?
Yeah, just from the headline.
I mean, clickbait is what I think. I just need to read more than that.
Okay, spot on.
Mate. I just don't. I've learned never. A headline is just a way for you to click on it, and then they get paid advertising. So, yes, let's see what this story's about.
So I'm going to scroll down because somebody posted this. The same people posted this. And my first thought was, okay. I know that doctors have shown on many videos, there's been many stories out showing that, wearing a mask has no detrimental effect to your oxygen levels. There's, what I find amazing is surgeons and nurses that they'll be in surgery for hours on end wearing much thicker masks than, let's say, the cloth masks that these kids are wearing. So I scrolled down having a look at this. And so what the first thing we see is he was wearing a mask while lapping the running track. Then he suddenly fell backwards and hit his head on the ground. His father was only identified as Lee, told the outlet. The death certificate listed as sudden cardiac arrest, but no autopsy was performed. So my first thought was, we have 2 boys. Did they drop dead in the same class, or were they a week apart in 2 different areas? It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's not rare, but it's not uncommon for people, young people, even in their 20s, to have sudden cardiac arrest. It's a thing. And China is a big place. Then there was, so the father said, I suspect it was because he was wearing a mask. Now, again, this was shared. This article was shared because it's going to get interesting in a second, because somebody thought that this was a good enough reason to maybe sway people from the idea of masks. So if you read a little further down, I'm not going to read the name, said it's unlikely that the mask caused the boy to suffocate. I don't think mask wearing has caused this sudden death, Chow said. I think it's Chow. Though she added, it was impossible to say without an autopsy. So even in here, they've quoted a medical professional saying it's probably not the reason that somebody's died. And in this whole piece of information, in this, the sharing of this article and the reading of this article, this is the best piece of evidence we have. Somebody who's got a medical education or background, as far as we can tell, is saying that's not the issue. And actually, the article isn't even advertising that that's the issue. What they're advertising is 2 boys have died. Their father thinks it's the mask. A health professional said it's unlikely. They need an autopsy. And that's all we really know at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just totally unsurprising. 1 + 1 = 84. Just
Very well said.
let's just try and mash these two together and make it look like, you know, what's the saying, like causation versus creation versus causation, is it?
Association or correlation? Causation versus correlation.
Yeah, exactly. So you have the fact that the cause of this issue is the mask, when in fact it sounds like there is a very strong chance of having underlying health issues. The mask probably exacerbated that, and I would, as an uneducated, inexperienced person, I would say it probably didn't help. But to you know, so there was some possible correlation, but that does not equal causation. That's you know, one of those strong arguments, and this is why I don't watch the media, and it's for bullshit articles like that, for people just putting 1 + 1 to try and mash something up and get a click on it and make some money. So yeah, not at all surprised to read that, but it's yeah, I suppose disappointing by the person that you know that's kind of put that across as a counter not to do it. Because if they're really reading that article outside of the headline alone, you'd think that there's not really anything in it.
Yeah, it's a weird one because these same people, so these are multiple people, will post pictures and images that have a, you know, it'll be a picture. There was one they posted this week, which was a picture of somebody wearing blackface and somebody looking like Bill Clinton in 1968 or something. And it's a well-known photo that's been doing the you know, running the circles. And the narrative behind it is Hillary wore blackface. And these same people that are posting these are quite sensitive about fake news. They don't like fake news. The president doesn't like fake news. I'm going to go ahead and post this as 100% Hillary Clinton. And then when you do an image search, which I do, I have an app on my phone. I can take a screenshot. I can frame it, and I can then search the image. And what comes up is, that is not Hillary Clinton. That is not Bill Clinton. Here's a picture of them at that time. They look nothing like the people in the picture. It is definitely not them. So the people that are worried about fake news, they're just posting things because they're trying to win people over to a narrative, and it's
confirmation bias. It's exactly.
It is 100%.
Yeah,
and this comes to fruition, I think, in this whole mask debate. And to be fair, I'm probably guilty of it as well to a certain degree. I do my best to do, if I share anything, to do due diligence that this person is a medical professional. If I'm posting anything on you know, masks, or if it's an experiment or a study, I want to make sure that it's a peer-reviewed study from a, you know, prestigious university, or, you know, from somewhere where they're clearly they have, you know, good educational backing. And it is something that is a referenceable material, not just, there was a politician who did a CO2 test wearing a mask. So you're seeing medical professionals wearing the finger monitor, wearing a mask, show that their saturation levels are 99%, and they'll wear it for hours at a time. And the finger monitor will show their oxygen, their O2 levels are 99%, which is about what they would be. And there was a politician who did a test and put some sort of a CO2 reader in his mask, or the mask of a kid, and it dropped down to something like 60%. That's a politician who has no medical background, who's using some sort of CO2 device that I don't know is suitable for that sort of test. I'm not going to take that as gospel.
Right. The thing with the one factor which I can just throw in the mix with this is that I'm aware of those kind of studies, and from someone that's aware of anxiety as well, the thought of a mask going on, if you have some apprehension about that, your oxygen intake will be worse. So you can absolutely prove that it can work against certain people. And you can also find people that don't give two fucks about anxiety and are totally chill, that it does nothing to. So it isn't like, you know, that doesn't mean that people couldn't be affected by it because of the psychological bias they have and the fear around it. So I absolutely believe that there are people that will put masks on and it will not do them very, you know, will do them a lot of not a lot, but could do them psychological harm and oxygen uptake, because so could being in a lift. So could, like I've experienced, you know, my reactions from anxiety. So I know that to be true. But, you know, obviously what's really good to hear and what people should see, because if people with anxiety see that type of study and behavior, that look, this does nothing, here's the proof of it, that could kind of alleviate some of that built-up anxiety. Like, oh, I can't breathe properly. Oh God, something's happening, and working themselves up.
So I think where we've got to, this has been an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
We've really covered quite a bit. I don't know that we've really resolved anything over this hour. I don't know that we've changed any hearts and minds. I think really one thing that I feel quite good about today is we've had a discussion and we've really tried to look at other people's positions and tried to really interrogate what those positions are and why they are what they are. I think the one area that we may have some division on is to what degree we should be trusting people to do this and to what degree we should be, quote, forcing people to do this. And I don't think for me it's a matter of, I think where I've evolved slightly, it's not a matter of forcing people to wear masks, but maybe preventing them from going places where them not wearing masks can be detrimental. So if let's say they want to go into a supermarket and can't, there's videos of supermarkets that are offering to get the food for them and bring them out. So if there's a point where they can't eat, that's an issue. But I think it's fair to prevent them from going to places, not forcing them to wear a mask, but prevent them from going somewhere where they could unknowingly infect somebody. But to how that's enforced, we're never going to answer that with our knowledge and with the time we have at all.
So it's a total waste of time, basically.
We may as well.
I'm getting the conclusion.
Yeah.
We apologize for everyone following. I mean, all joking aside, it's just great to kind of talk about these things because, it is good to test your ideas. And when you've got to verbalize it, and even like what GTO Man was doing with us earlier in the call, it's a different thing sitting there watching it and having your thoughts. But when you start to get engaged with it, you have to try and back that up a little bit more. And that can push you down one way or the other, can kind of strengthen your position or, make you maybe relax a little bit or just see a different perspective, maybe not change your opinion, but that's something I didn't see. So that's why I always get so much from these conversations, Shawn, is just that we're tackling some of these issues that are very relevant right now and trying our best to look at them from a distinct point of view, if we can, at the various ends, and just seeing where we sit in the middle. And once again, I think it's a topic that we share most of. We're definitely coming from the right place. And I don't think either of us actually know in ourselves how we would go about ensuring the best way forward with this one. But I think we've got some largely similar views on this.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic, and I think it's one that I've learned. And even earlier in this call, I think when we lost GTO Man's interest was probably when I was trying to work through what he was saying, because I think he definitely, fair play to somebody who's commented it. Our first comment, I'm really glad it was somebody like that, because that was quite a nuanced way of proposing his point of view or her point of view. It says man.
Yeah, it's man. I think it's a man. Yeah.
Yes, well, it says to man. But I mean, the way he's just to and I don't want to keep going on. I know we're short on time, but he posted some comments that were, exactly, you can ask and I may do it, but I will not force you. True freedom is the choice. I am in charge of my own health. You can educate, but still my choice. Freedom is sometimes messy. You force one thing, then you can force another, then freedom gone. And he said that whilst I was giving my point of view, and I started to really struggle getting my sentences out at that point because it really challenged some of my thinking on it whilst I was spewing my point of view. And then middle ground is you appeal to common sense, but have choice. And I just am really grateful that we had somebody comment the first time that did such a good job with such a small amount of characters, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that totally. I actually think there's strength and depth to that argument, because I think if you're largely being sensible, it can, you can make it work. Our buddy with the 3,000 followers kind of made that argument weaker, but
need to get Garrett on.
Need to get Garrett on. Yeah,
Garrett on. Garrett, if you're watching this, we need to get you on. Well, I think we wrap it up from there. I think, you don't have to solve everything, but I think having a conversation forces you to think about things in uncomfortable ways. And that happened for me today, most certainly. It doesn't sound like I haven't changed my point of view, but it's made me a bit more aware of this has been the best show for me, because it's actually given me a nuanced conversation to have, not only with somebody else, but with myself and what I think. And hopefully the same's happened for you. So I think we're going to, shall we call it a day?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the best show for me because I've sounded spectacular with my new microphone. Arguably better than you, which again, if you've watched this and you stayed to the end, please comment below who sounds better, me or Shawn. We've got a wager on this. But thanks again for watching.
We're not talking quality of voice, by the way. not quality of voice.
Hey,
because I think
both.
I listen to these shows back sometimes, and it's just like I want to fast forward through my bits and just listen to.
Come on,
It's
on.
breathtaking. So yeah, so I think we're going to be having another show on Thursday. We're going to be delving in. It won't be a long show. We're going to be delving into some views on death. I think you and I have had some experiences, and we wanted to maybe talk through how we've experienced and handled death in our lives. So quite a somber show, but I think one that I'm looking forward to having with you. Just kind of hearing your experiences. I'm going to share some of mine, and it's always a fascinating topic, whether it's dark or not. It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to kind of getting into it, especially off the back of what we've been through. And I like tackling the difficult topics, getting into the meaty stuff, because really I think that's what life is all about. But yeah, thanks again for joining us, everyone. And please leave a comment and any questions of any topics. Well, questions or opinions on today's topic of masks, and in general what you'd like us to cover moving forward.
Yeah.
So any thoughts, please leave them in the social media feeds that are going across the bottom, or on the YouTube comment section.
All right, well, that is us for this week, and I am back from holiday, so we'll try to get some posts in between now and Thursday when we next air our show. The Thursday show is not going to be a live one. It's going to be a recording. I'm planning on wearing these clothes again, so just want to let you know that is nothing to do with our recording schedule and continuity. But yeah,
I was going to suggest changing tops, Shawn, but okay, that's fine.
Too late now. I don't have anything clean. So yeah, tune in on Thursday. I'll be updating our show. Please feel free to comment and definitely subscribe. At the end of the video, we'll put a subscribe. And thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you on Thursday.
See you, folks.